A very good evening. Happy Monday. Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows. And welcome to what is one of the busiest nights of wine in Johannesburg, as DGB, with its ever-growing portfolio of prestige wine, descends upon Johannesburg to showcase both current and new products and vintages and extensions and brand ranges and basically anything else Tim has come up with at 3 o'clock in the morning that he's decided is a good idea and would like to add to the DGB family. It's a really important conversation this evening for a number of reasons. At a very simple level, it's some great wine with some great people, and those always make for the shows I really enjoy. But DGB has also been playing an increasingly big role in taking South African wine to the world, taking some premium brands at, in most cases, fairly decent scale and showing them to markets in Europe, in America, in Asia, in Australasia, and not just for the benefit of DGB, but for the greater benefit of South African wine, because as people get to know our wine better, so they're interested in exploring other brands from here. And so DGB's role, yes, they're a big business. Yes, they are doing well, but they're also playing a really, really big part in showcasing South African wine around the world. So this evening, the chance to catch up with some of the brands, some of the winemakers, find out what's been happening with the different brands, and together give you a picture of this DGB portfolio that gets bigger and better with every passing year. So plenty of winemakers and plenty of great wine coming up. Before we start catching up with this litany of rockstar winemakers, let's get some of the latest wine news. All right, this is kicking us off. This is the Chenin Blancs with Standard Bank, the South African top Chenin performers, led yet again by Tertius and his team at Stellenrust. I think he got 17 of the top 12 this year. He's making some extraordinary Chenin. What I love about Tertius and Stellenrust is the scope of interpretation of Chenin, making a range of different styles, but doing all of them really, really well. Part of a big selection of Chenins from a number of different producers. And these are wines that are going to be showcased in China later on this year. We spoke a moment ago about taking South African wine to the world. Well, top Chenins are headed to the Chinese market. And if you're watching this in China, as I know most of the country does on a weekly basis, well, you're in for a real treat. Look up South African Chenin headed your way. This is Rake and Netling's party coming up, the Val de Vie Garden Party, and this is at the end of November. The Val de Vie team threw a hell of a party, and this one is going to be awash with food and wine and sunshine and glamour. There's a lot of polo happening through the month, but this one's really food and wine focused at Val de Vie. The estate itself is a ridiculous success story, and part of it is that they do loads of really cool and fun events. This is one of them. Head over to the Val de Vie estate if you're interested in going along. It should be a really, really cool day out. The Val de Vie Garden Party at the end of November. And then these are the Lost Boys. This is next Tuesday evening at Norman Goodfellows. Your chance to try out Lost Boys. What is the Lost Boys? Is it one? Are there many? Well, you'll need to come along and find out. It's your chance to try some great wine, to find out the story behind the Lost Boys, and add another wine or two to your chosen portfolio. If you would like to join in, then the Norman Goodfellows website is your destination. Grab a ticket before they sell out and come and join the Norman Goodfellows team and the Lost Boys next Tuesday evening. All right, this is going to be a mad roller coaster of a show because we've got 806 winemakers to talk to in the next 41 minutes. So it's speed dating of a winemaking perspective. And if we're speed dating, what better than a glass of bubbles to calm the nerves and inject a little romance into the evening show. Lovely to see you and a warm welcome. Kicking off appropriately with bubbles because it's a great way to start any conversation or meeting or gathering, but also because every time I chat to you or I chat to really anybody from the Boschendal team, you've got a whole lot of great products, but the growth of the bubbles within Boschendal just seems to be exponential, not just in terms of the sales, which are going really well, but you guys are having a lot of fun with experimenting, with broadening, and with creating product that seems to be just getting better and better.
Yeah, I must say, Dan, thanks for having me here. Thanks for having us all here. It's really exciting. exciting to share our wines with you as well. Cap Classique, I think it's just electric how exciting it is as a category in South Africa, and then for Boschendal specifically as well. It's really one of our fastest growing wine categories. It's really, especially locally, doing really well. We have this great terroir focus on our Cap Classiques, where we believe we have these beautiful grapes with amazing fresh acidity, great low pHs. Our Cap Classiques have great ageability. So really excited about our future of our Cap Classique brands.
You have to have a great deal of patience doing what you do. We often talk about the aging of wine, but when it comes to top-end bubbles, we're now looking, I think in your case, top of the range, we're looking at 9 years from starting the process with harvest to actually getting the grapes out there. So you're going to be 107 by the time the next vintage is out. What's that mindset like, working on something now in 2024 as you were this harvest, knowing that, hang on, 2033 is when this wine's going to see the light of day?
Yeah, I must say it's amazing, and it's something that's quite special about winemaking specifically. You plant vines now that'll be at their peak sometimes only in 50 years or so, and then with Cap Classique, it just extends that process even further, where you know that Cap Classique benefits from time on lease, for example, and specifically for us at Boschendal, and specifically with the Jean Lelong, which has this 10 years aging on lease. It's such a, it takes so much time but then I think the proof is in the pudding when you finally get to taste the finished product, and it just has this amazing complexity that comes from the aging on lease process, and it's all just worth it. Sometimes that you might even do it for a next generation of winemakers, but I think just enjoying it, with the people at the end, it makes it all worth it.
It's even a year older than I thought it was. I was going 9. It's actually 10 years, which is a crazy number. I certainly appreciate that. I wonder to what extent the broader South African market is doing that. For a long time, there was a gulf in perception. Champagne was up there, and what was still MCC at that stage was about here. And that's slightly a generalization, but that was where a lot of people saw it. I see the gap closing dramatically, not just in terms of quality, but the interpretation of that quality. Is that me just being really optimistic, or are South Africans starting to realize just how good this is?
Oh, yes, I think for sure. South Africans and even the world of wine, they're really recognizing that our Cap Classiques can compete against any of the great sparkling wines of the world, and often even at a fraction of the price. So I think we often do blind comparative tastings, and it is very difficult these days even for people to identify even the difference between a top champagne, for example, and a Cap Classique often. But we just believe it's still unique. It's almost, we say, where you can taste the sunshine in our Cap Classique. So it has a unique expression. It has, it's South African, but I think the quality is right up there and the world's noticing. So super excited about that.
Before we eject you and downgrade to an elderly red wine maker, you got this particular one. Give me one other of the bubbles that you're making that, for whatever reason, deeply personal or historical or romantic. What's one of the other bubbles that you're making that you feel people should really make an effort to seek out and sample?
I really think the Grand Cuvée, it's also one of our vintage Cap Classiques. So where the Jean Lelong is a Blanc de Blanc, the Grand Cuvée is a Pinot Noir Chardonnay blend. And really, again, all about terroir. It's all about our Algan vineyard. So really cool climate. Again, it's that beautiful freshness, great acidity, aging potential. So it's a wine that, again, just benefits from time, but it really expresses the unique and special terroir of Algan. So I really think that's something to wine to look out for. And please go out and taste it. It's something special.
All right. Well, 2 wines in excellent hands amongst many others. Charles, thank you. Kicking us off on a great note. Have a good evening. And
thanks,
I'll come
Dan.
do some tasting a little later.
Great to be here. See you later.
All right. So there we go. Charles with the bubbles. And I said at the start that broadly DGB is doing a great job of driving South African wine, but the Boschendal bubbles in particular, I'm seeing more and more of them on wine lists where perhaps I would have seen a generic bottle of Mouton Chandon or Veuve Clicquot or one of the bigger champagne houses. Now those kinds of bottles are sitting on South African wine lists, very proudly so, and I think seen by people as very much in that kind of space. Now, if that is growing, what has been in place for some time is the quality of South African red, and that's because I've got lots of good mates who are making really good South African red. Jack, lovely to have you back on the show and celebrating what's a really cool evening. And just before we jump into some of your reds, when I see this army of DGB winemakers assemble Avengers like at one space, it's quite a team to be part of.
Yes, Dan, I told my wife the other day, I don't know I would ever be able to go and work for anybody else again. You know, it is just the energy of the team is electric. The projects that we're busy with at the moment, you know, specifically on the red wine side, the Helderberg project, 140 hectares of premium vineyard sites in the Helderberg itself. It's phenomenal, you know, so it's super exciting to be part of this. So.
You've got a great record over the last few years of doing what many consider to be the holy grail project of South African wine, and that is producing premium at scale. And I think led in particular by the Nicholas, where you've got something that sits at a slightly higher end of the market, but you are producing in pretty big numbers and yet still maintaining that quality, and often to the surprise of people, because there's often a thought that as you get bigger, so the quality must drop. You have managed to avoid that. You mentioned the 140 hectares that Tim very kindly threw Hospital Pass into your lap. How is that challenge working? How are you getting on with continuing to build and broaden while still ensuring you deliver what I know is so important to you, and that's quality?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, that is very important. So I just think DGB as a company itself, you know, So our mandate is to produce premium wine. So, and it comes from the top down. So Tim and Rick, they all understand that premium wine, we need to secure premium vineyards. We are farming for the future. Everything that we're busy with at the moment, a lot of the red wines, we need longevity in vineyards itself. So it makes sense to have the support and the backing to make wine at scalable quality, which is the biggest challenge, is to secure premium vineyards. And thank goodness they're on board with that. And, you know, so the idea, they support the whole idea of premium, the drive behind premium. And yeah, so if it wasn't for that, you know, it would have been a real challenge. But I can honestly say, just taking Black Angus or taking Nicholas itself, that's one of the big reasons for that 140 hectares of premium vineyards in the Helderberg itself, is to really sustain, to farm for the future, to replant or to plant vineyards for the future as well. It's often weird to think about it, but in 15 years from now, you know, as the wine is growing as well, but in 15 years from now, I'm probably a custodian just passing off this new Cabernet, awesome vineyards at its prime to the next winemaker, but it's lucky to be part of that.
With all of this new territory, these new 140 hectares, comes the commensurate volume of grapes, and then what to do with them. Now, you can certainly expand the ranges that you have at the moment, but I know you guys well enough to know that there's always some new idea, something new coming. How far ahead are you thinking? What sort of projects are you thinking might start to emerge as you continue to grow?
Well, look, there's a bit of a project that we're busy on the side, which I'm not going to mention now, but it's what I can say, the first one is already bottled. It's a new SKU that's pretty awesome. And we obviously, being quite focused in the Helderberg itself, you know, it Cabernet Franc, Bordeaux style blends, full Bordeaux blends, that's really important to us as well. So, yeah, there's quite a few nice things that's upcoming, and that's part of the DGB program, and for Boschendal as well. It's really exciting.
Let's talk about what you've got here. I know this is one of the wines you're going to be showcasing this evening. You've got wines that are a little sleight of hand, because they come in these big murder weapon bottles that are full of stature and big, powerful elegance, and yet when you pour them, they're not always the blockbusters you might expect. Certainly they're wines with plenty of character and presence, but but there is also a wonderful elegance to a lot of wines that put them in a slightly different space to the one people I think are often anticipating.
Yeah, I think then what we've, once again, just coming down to what we're trying to achieve at Boschendal itself, what we stand for. What we stand for is terroir-driven, classic, elegant wines. You know, if you take Boschendal itself, the second oldest wine farm in South Africa, it's all about heritage. It's all about stories to tell. And that's how we sell wine. And we've realized as well that classic, elegant wines, those are the diamonds. Those are the wines that last forever. Classic, low pHs, good natural acidities, amazing tannins, nice color to it. And that's why we've secured the vineyards in the Helderberg itself as well, because suddenly, you know, South Africa is quite unique with these vineyards because we are very close to the Atlantic Ocean. Within 10 kilometers from the sea, you can go up 550 meters above sea level. So you get good radiation, you get good tannin ripeness, good color, nice extraction, still tight, elegant, without massive bomb squad alcohols and stuff, you know. So, and those are the ones that's really, it withstands the test of time. And then we've invested heavily into our bottling program as well. So everything, we measure DO in tank, percentage oxygen in the pipe, in the bottle before we fill it. So I know that there's a total tank oxygen of below 1.2 when I bottle this. So once again, you can drink it now because it's got that drinkability and it's not too heavy, but it's got the legs to carry it. And I promise you in 15 years from now, you're going to open it and it's still going to be super, super awesome.
This is dependent on me managing to not drink it before those 15 years are up.
That's the biggest problem.
Lots of wine to try, Tim. Just before I let you go, one in particular you think's really drinking well right at the moment, just in a perfect window that I must not miss.
Of the red wines?
Of the red wines.
Yes, I must just say that the 2022 Nicholas is phenomenal. That's also the 1.5 liters. We also sponsored the box and the New Zealand team with a 1.5 signed of Nicholas wine, and that's really it's all about that wine is about that affordable luxury. It's about drinkability. It's 100% Stellenbosch, 100% Helderberg, but the drinkability because it's a border style blend driven by Cabernet Sauvignon, but still non-conventional because there's a touch of Shiraz from the southern slopes of the Helderberg that just gives it that drinkability. You must try it. It's awesome. Yeah. And if you can get your hands on a 1.5, obviously a Magnum, even better.
Well, I know one or two people. I might be having a word with them. Jacques, thank you so much. Yes. I shall be joining you for a little more tasting later, but always great to have you on the show.
Awesome, Dan. Thank you very much. Cheers.
There we go. Great red wine maker. Also, great rugby raconteur. You might remember with Dan Really Likes Wine, we did some Boschendal work not that long ago, talking about rugby and wine. I think we talked a lot about rugby and not quite so much about wine, but either way, had a really, really good time. The wonder of this particular platform is there are just so many different brands to talk about, and amongst those brands is one that's just getting more and more excitement. Yeah, good to see you. Welcome onto the show with a wine that's, I think, probably come further than any other wine we will see today, because this has wound its way in from the West Coast. We've been lucky enough, with Lisa in particular, to talk about the Friars Cove story a number of times, but maybe a good opportunity just for a quick reminder for people for whom this is not a brand they're terribly familiar with, the snapshot of this Friars Cove story and this wonderful little winery that, quite frankly, is in the middle of nowhere.
That is absolutely true, and thank you for having me and giving us the opportunity to bring you the story, apart from coming so far. Yeah, and I used to say, or I still say to people, we are the Wild West Coast, so there's something different there, and that also goes through to our wines. And Friars Cove is about 350 kilometers north of Cape Town on the west coast. The closest vineyard at the moment in the Friars Cove, Bambus Bay Ward, is about 500 meters from the coastline. So we get extreme cold weather from the ocean onto the vineyards. And that is the whole reason why we started Friars Cove in 1999 and planted the vineyards out there. To establish that, there's no water out there because it's semi-desert with about 45 millimeters of rain per year. So we had to make a plan, and I put in a pipeline from my farm in Vredendal to bring water for almost 30 kilometers over there. And then the project would start. And we planted the vineyards and making the first experimental wine, which was Sauvignon Blanc, in 2001. And we saw that what we anticipated is coming true. It wasn't all moonshine and roses. We had a lot of things that we didn't think about. But lucky for us, most of the things that was different than in other wine regions was things that brought more flavors and more dimension to our wines. So when the wines hit the market, it was sort of a little bit not understandable because it was so totally different than the normal Sauvignon Blancs in the market. And we get a bonus of a little bit of salt deposits we get onto the vines, and which ends up on the bunches and ends up in the wine, which gives you a little bit of a salty minerality taste, which you don't get anywhere. So that's one of the privileges of being there. And I always tell people, if they ask about viticulture and what's the difference of producing there, I joke, but it's actually true. We sometimes don't wait for the sugar levels to go up. We wait for the acid to drop, because with cool climate, you get absolutely beautiful acids and a lot of flavor because of a long ripening season. So yes, a privilege to have the opportunity to produce some grapes down there and make wine down there. And always such a privilege to tell it to people. And then afterwards, if they can taste the wine, then the wine must speak for itself and tell you where it comes from. And that's why we have that extra dimension of that salty minerality.
There's so much about where you are that says you should not be making wine here. You're absolutely mad. What were you thinking? This cannot work. And yet what you have been able to do is to take so many of those things that initially say this shouldn't work and discover how, with a bit of lateral thinking and turning them around, they actually become part of the success story.
It is true. It is true. And the funny thing is, if you talk about a little bit of madness, I once had a conversation with few people, and there was a group of ladies standing to my back, and I heard them talking about the wine industry, and that was 1997. Was the first time that the wine industry was growing at a huge rate, specifically red wines. And then I planted, and this lady was referring to those times when the wine industry was growing at a good rate, and prices for wine grapes was going good and higher than normal. And she said she is monitoring the people planting vineyards, and they're actually sowing wine grapes. And the next moment she says, and can you believe it? There's some madman that went to plant vineyards at Strandfontein. So I turned around and I said, I want to introduce myself. I'm the madman from Strandfontein. And she actually went purple. But true, as you said, there was a little bit of madness, but it was actually a calculated move. We did some trials for about 2 years, but then we did it on brackish water, and we knew we couldn't go forward for the rest of our life with using brackish water. So we had to get fresh water there. And that's the only way we could tame the West Coast and get the quality of grapes that we produce at the moment.
The impact for most people quite immediately has been with the white wines and these conditions in which you operate that lend such a distinctive feel to them. And I think more and more people are starting to discover them. What has been a little more recent is the adventures into red wine.
Yes.
There's lots in my head that says this can definitely work with white wine. Putting the puzzle together for red wine is a little more difficult to do. So why is it that these conditions can also make red wine work?
Yeah, the nice thing, when we planted the Sauvignon Blanc, we knew that normally where you have Sauvignon Blancs doing well, Pinot Noir will be also the cultivar that will probably do well there. Although Pinot Noir is like a ladylike cultivar for me. You need to treat her very well, then she'll give you everything back. So we were not so sure if the climate is going to be working that well with Pinot Noir than with the Sauvignon Blanc. Because in Sauvignon Blanc, the Sauvignon of Sauvignon Blanc means savage. So it's a hard grower, it's a vicious plant. So we put in the Pinot Noir, and immediately we saw from the first day that the flavors were very good. Unfortunately, in 2017, we had that absolutely worst drought ever, where we were down to 17% of our water. So in 2018, we just didn't have enough water to water all the grapes. So the Pinot Noir, being the youngest block, we had to cull that. And the vines didn't survive. So we replanted. We have now developed a little bit of desalination plant also. So we replanted the Pinot Noir, and hopefully we will have Bambus Bay Pinot Noir again in 2028. But at the moment we have the Friars Cove Pinot Noir, which is in the range at the moment of the Friars Cove range, which grapes comes from the closest neighbor. It's not as close to the coast, but it's also in a cool climate area, which is very nice to have it to go like an introductory Pinot Noir before the Bamboos Bay Pinot Noir will be ready again.
2028. It is in my diary. I'm looking forward to sampling it when it's out. Just quickly before we wrap up with you in Fry's Cove, it is such a cool story. There's just so much to it that I love. What excites you most about looking ahead to where this journey now goes?
Yeah, the very nice thing that happened is when DGB got involved, we could talk about more marketing opportunities and spreading the word easier than me going around, because I'm one man traveling around and telling the story. Now we've got more people telling the story. So it excites me that Fry's Cove is getting more known and faster than normal, because by word of mouth is the best way for marketing for Fry's Cove. And as people hear about it, they come to visit us and they experience the whole cool climate thing down there and taste the wine down there. And I always say, if we can get the people coming out to Durang Bay at the winery, we will try our utmost best to make you a customer for life. So that's the kind of exciting things we have in mind at the moment.
Well, I know I've got a visit on the horizon. I'm genuinely excited because I've been wanting to come up for a long time. Thank you so much. We've got some tasting to do a little later, so you'll be seeing more of me. But Jan, for now, thank you, and really good having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
South Africa really just is awash with all of these super cool wine stories. And if you are trying to sell a bottle of wine, you're competing with so many people. And it's more than just how good is this bottle. It's a case of who else is competing in this space? What is your pricing? And then what is the story to the wine? And Fry's Cove has got some genuinely good wine and genuinely interesting wine, but it also has this unique story. And if you go and Google it, go and have a look on a map, go and see exactly where these guys are. It's not an easily accessible place. It's a good 4-hour drive from Cape Town. People occasionally fly up there. There is a little airfield you can get to, and it might seem like it's a bit of an effort to get all that way. But once you do get up, once you have traveled that far, and once you have gone to experience it, I think you're going to find yourself richly rewarded. And I speak with a sense of projection and anticipation, but I will be able to speak with some authority a little later this year once my maiden visit has taken place and I have come back from Fry's Cove armed with exactly the sort of love for the place that Jan has just alluded to. Right, from Fry's Cove, let's head over to a brand that's a little easier to access in terms of finding the place, because you don't have to travel halfway to Namibia to get there. Instead, you stroll out to the winelands and you look for the beaming smile of yet another of South Africa's great winemakers. Richard, great to have you back on the show.
Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
Likewise. I was saying to you, Jacques, a moment ago, it's the Avengers assembling when the full DGB team of 8,412 winemakers touches down en masse. There's obviously a wonderful camaraderie amongst all of you. I think generally in South Africa, our winemakers are a pretty close-knit bunch. And if you need to borrow a tractor or want some advice on getting your Chenin Blanc just right, you've got loads of people you can draw from. But I'm guessing it's probably even more so when it comes to you guys and this pool of winemakers you have within the team.
It's, should I say, exactly like you say, we're actually good friends, all of us. So, we do help each other a lot. We share different things. But I think the best of all is, we're all unique. We all have our own personalities, basically our own ideas. And, should I say, most of us are very good at something, So if you need some ideas, should I say, to do with something specific, you would go and ask one of your colleagues, who specializes in that often. But just to bounce tasting off, we often taste together, and that's great because everyone tastes differently. Sometimes you miss things that somebody else recognizes. So, it makes a very big difference. Really does help a lot. Yeah.
You've also got, even closer than that, your own Bellingham winemaking team. And that's been another part of this broader DGB story where I've seen, just in the years I've known and worked with you guys, young talent is promoted, it's supported, it's given an opportunity. And you've now split the red and wine teams.
Yeah, for the last 3 years, we appointed a white winemaker, Ricardo Klute. So he's my colleague. So, I do the reds and he focuses on the whites. But we are very much a team. We do everything together. We taste together all the time. But that is his speciality, and the reds is a little bit more my speciality.
I remember interviewing him. I think he was still at Durbanville Hills as an assistant winemaker. I think he was 11 at the time and trying very hard with not much success to grow a moustache. And he was talking about this vision he had for winemaking future. It is, whichever winemaker you speak to, such a great part of the world that you're in, that it is a constant evolution. You do keep learning, but you also keep growing. You keep having these new adventures and experiences.
The best part is he's a very good taster. Some things you just can't learn, and that's just natural talent. So both of us, we help each other with those things as well. So that definitely plays a big role. Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about the Bellingham brand. You and I have referenced the old Johannesburger on many occasions on the show, but I think just as we talk of evolution with the winemakers, so we have evolution with the wine. And I think where Bellingham finds itself now in that premium wine space and delivering some really strong wine has been a quiet but very considered move into a space over a number of years where I'm guessing you're quite happy with where you find yourselves today.
Oh, for sure. Bellingham, we're trying very hard to forget those old Johannesburger days.
I shall keep reminding you as often as possible.
But Bellingham, you know what? It's actually quite exciting to see where Bellingham came from to what it is today. And we've totally premiumized. We've got some of the best vineyards, I think, in the country. We've got access to absolutely super fruit. And I think that's the most important part, is having access to those fruit. We've got a real smart winery as well, but, that doesn't make that much of a difference. But I think Bellingham's in a good space, And, like Bernard Podlashuk always used to experiment with different varietals and different things. We're still doing that today. Ricardo and I both. Lots of new varietals every year, different ways of making wine. Should I say, which is very exciting. We're always trying new things as well, and that's Bellingham today. We've premiumized, but we always trying new things. Experimenting is definitely part of the culture today.
The spirit of Bernard is alive and well within the Bellingham brand. It was a year ago and we sat down amongst the chaos for what was a very short interview. It was right at the end of a mad evening. But if you look over those last 12 months, what have we seen with Bellingham that's new, different, getting you excited?
Oh, Dan, I'm not allowed to talk about some of the new things that we're
every time I speak to anybody from DGB, we've got 26 new wines and I can't tell you about that.
We've got some very exciting things coming, but we're not quite there yet. So, but we do have some varietals and some different blends that I'm super excited about. For sure. But next time, I hope you'll be able to tell you more about it.
I shall hold you to that. And then just as you look at this evening, you're celebrating wine. There might be people watching going, well, hang on, Dan, you've just spoken to Boschendal, they make red wine, and you just spoken to Friars Cove and they make red wine, and Backsberg's coming up and Brampton's coming up and old wine. These are all people of making wine. How does this work? How do the different pieces work together, and how much do you spend time, I guess, strategizing about what fits in where within this bigger family?
Well, most of the DGB wineries has something that they specialize in. With Bellingham, ours is definitely Pinotage and Syrah focused, I'd say. And none of the other wineries really specialize in those two, should I say, varietals up to the level that we do. We've smaller scale. We do it in a small winery within the winery, the Bernard Winery. So very exciting stuff. But Pinotage and Syrah definitely our focal points on the reds.
All right. I owe you a visit because every time we speak, I promise to do so.
Sounds good.
Maybe if I do come down, you'll let me into some of those secrets that are on the horizon.
Maybe.
All right. Happy winemaking. Regards to Ricardo. And
Thank you,
thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks. Good to see you again. Cheers.
There we go. The wines of Bellingham and Bernard. Here's something to do this evening if you're at a loose end. You've finished everything on Netflix and you're looking to find something new. Go and Google Bernard Bellingham. I won't give you a surname because I never pronounce it correctly and the spelling is a nightmare. But you've got one of these many, they almost seem slightly mythical figures in South African wine who have contributed so much. And we saw with the Tim Atkin report a week ago, Gunther Brosel getting the legend of wine. So you've got in Bernard somebody who is part of the fabric of South African wine finding itself where it is today, and also why Bellingham has got that platform which has now led into exactly what we have just been celebrating. All right, enough of the Bellingham. Let's jump across to the Old Road Wine Company.
How are you, Dan?
I'm very well. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
There is generally, I find most wine people are quite happy in these kind of events.
Yeah.
But everybody who's arrived looks like they're on helium balloons. They're just so happy to be together and celebrating. And there is, and I don't say this lightly, there is always an immense sense of pride with everybody I engage with in this DGB family. This huge, big machine that you're all part of, that yet still feels like a family business.
Yeah, look, everybody is passionate about their brands and they're all happy to be and present their wines to the trade. So it's exciting. We all flew up together this morning, all on the same bus, getting to the airport, same hotel. So it's just good fun. And we're always at work and you're always in a different environment. But once you're out and you get to present your wines, you're more relaxed and you're happy and excited. And yeah, it's just great to be here. So all very excited.
Every one of the brands has got various accolades, various reasons to be proud of what they are doing. When I look at Old Road, I think you guys you've won some really cool stuff over the last few years, but you've also emerged, I think, quite quietly. You haven't made a huge song and dance about you and what you do. You've wanted to get the wine right first, and you've done it in a way that always appeals to me, because you've taken great wine, which you need, but you've wrapped it up in some seriously cool stories, and that combination makes for a really powerful partnership.
Well, Old Road is all about working with the different stories. So that's where the concept came up. Old Road is the old dusty road in Franschhoek. And then the concept's based around using old vines, very site specific. So really just like, yeah, we don't want to reinvent the wheel when it comes to winemaking. We just want to talk about great wines, great sites, and just let the wine speak for itself. So yeah, and more in the artistic side of winemaking, basically. So yeah, different story.
Give us the philosophy behind the winemaking. Is this a space of, right, let's find grapes that we really like, get hold of them, and from there create something that we feel does justice to who we are as a brand? Yeah,
definitely. So we're looking at, like I said, a very specific site. So very terroir-driven wines, and then obviously old vines. That's a big thing for us. So like the Semillon I'm holding was 1936, planted in 1936. Stone Trail Chenin Blanc was planted in 82. So we're looking at old vines and the best terroir where we can. And then we're using different vessels. We're using foudres, amphora clay pots, ceramic eggs, natural fermentation, natural settling. The vines are unirrigated bush vines. So really looking at all the different concepts we can use to make the best wine possible.
And the Semillon is such a great example of that old vine Franschhoek Semillon, particularly anything that comes from La Colline, which I think must be an 8 million hectare vineyard, the number of people who allegedly have Semillon from La Colline.
Basically 3 of us.
But I think what you've done with that is not only wonders for your own brand, but you've got into the discussion, into the South African wine debate, so much talk about old vine Semillon. And I think the success of this wine and the awards that it's won has got a lot of people realizing just what an asset we have in South Africa in Franschhoek Old Vine Semillon.
Especially Franschhoek, like you said, with the Old Vine Semillons, we have amazing vineyards. People don't really know Semillon. Most people know it as a Bordeaux white, so it's a Sauvignon Semillon blend. But on its own, it's not that popular. But once people taste it, and then they love it. They absolutely love it. And yes, Franschhoek has got some of the oldest vineyards in our country and the oldest Semillon in the country. So for us, it's a win-win. It's magic.
That storytelling, as I said, so integral to what it is. This is the Grand-Mère. Yeah. Who was the Grand-Mère?
So Grand-Mère is grandmother. Because of the oldest vineyards in Franschhoek, or in our range, it's the grandmother of the whole range. So that's where the name comes from.
Nice and
like
simple.
I said,
Tells a great
1936.
story. All right. Just quickly on this, we know it's an old vine in terms of the runway leading up to having these grapes today. Is this the kind of wine, if I buy it today, I can be hanging on to, I can spend some time with?
It will age absolutely amazing. We opened a 17 the other day, which is our first vintage, and it's absolutely beautiful. Semillon just ages amazing. It's got a low pH, and it's made in that style that you can buy it now. It's vibrant and fresh, but it's just going to get better. The next 15 years, it's just going to get better and better. So yeah, definitely.
The problem with this wine when it comes to tasting is I always go, I must taste other things, and then I just come straight back to this one because I love it. So help nudge me in the right direction. And it's always a tough one for anybody in the wine space. But what outside of the Grand-Mère Semillon should I be looking at? What from the Old Road range is drinking really well at the moment?
So our Stone Trail Chenin Blanc, which is an old vine planted in 82. And then obviously our Pepperwind Syrah, which is a single vineyard in Franschhoek. But that's that lovely Northern Rhone, lovely spice, violets, coriander. It's an amazing wine. We make only 4 barrels out of our Pepperwind Syrah, so it's very limited, but what a champion wine.
I think they're all champion wines, and you've done such a great job of bringing the story and the wine together, and they're both in a premium space. So keep going with it, and make sure you keep a few bottles of Semillon for the tasting later on. One has to do these things extensively to get them right.
I agree. Dan, thank you very much for your
Magic.
time. Have a great day.
The Old Road Wine Company. And again, I said go and have a look at Bernard and Bellingham for a bit of history on Google. If you go over to the Old Road Wine Company and you run through the different wines, the different names, and find out that there's one link to a butcher and there's one link to an old school tinker who used to make his way around the streets selling stuff. It is so hard to compete in the wine world if you've got a great story and then you've got great wine to back up a great story. Well, you're very much on the front foot. All right, let's jump over to somebody who's had a really, really big impact on the history of South African wine. And this is wine of a slightly more fortified nature because it's Brandewijn.
Yes.
Ronaldo, welcome.
Hi, Dan.
Lovely to have you on. And I'm looking at this
Yes.
very particularly because you might not know this, but I got married at Backsberg.
Oh,
And so I remember, this is going back a few years because I know I look like I'm in my mid-20s, but I'm ever so slightly older than that.
Wow.
And I remember being given some of the original Sydney Back brandy. There was a particular barrel that would be refilled every year
Yeah.
and replenished. And I loved the regenerative nature of the story, but also the fact that history was sifting through time as I was drinking it. But also just that it was very good brandy. And I think that has to be the starting point, that in a country that makes some seriously good brandy, this is right up there with the best of them.
exactly. And I mean, it's such a privilege for me as well to be aligned with a brand like this, where, you know, the intrinsics are just exceptional. And like you say, just the contingency in production, that we know that we source the grapes specifically for this. We have the luxury in order to do that. We have a very small production facility. The volumes that we're doing is very small. So we have a very sort of hands-on process to make sure that we stay aligned to what the identity is of the Backsberg brandies. And that includes, of course, the 25-year-old that we've recently launched.
Brandy has had a reputation for a long time as being the drink that you mix with increasingly small volumes of Coca-Cola while at a rugby match before getting into a fight. And I don't think it's done brandy any favors, because while there is that element of it as a casual round the bride drink, more and more we're getting brandies like this that would be in a cognac kind of space where you're drinking them not just because they have a certain powerful impact, but because actually they've got finesse, they've got subtlety, they've got elegance. How much is the consumer appreciation of that changing in South Africa?
So we're becoming more and more aware, at least, of consumers being aware of this in more the cognac category. So nothing to break down the brandy and Coke brandy. That's just a different style of brandy. Whereas pot still brandies, of course, are 100% pot still. So everything that's in there is 100% through the double distillation of our copper pot still. That's turned 33 this year. So slowly we are getting there and getting the brandies involved in trade shows like this as well, just putting it on the platform and also showing stylistic comparisons. So we have the Boschendal brandy, for example, and then we have the Sydney Pack range, just stylistically different brandies, and to show the consumer also just the depth of brandy that we have, and that it is supposed to be drunk neat, and the options are endless. It's just fantastic seeing the consumers also seeing that penny drop and seeing them realize, you know, how fantastic some brandies can be.
The early days of Chenin Blanc, Chenin was made when it was into the kind of wine that gave you a 4-day hangover and made you promise you'd never drink ever again. The majority of it would go into making brandy, and that was very much where Chenin was. Chenin has changed as brandy is changing. When you are distilling, how important is the quality of the grape? How much do you need to understand the vineyard? How much impact are those grapes having on the final product?
So that's an exceptional question. Because we go back all the way to, you know, the vineyards where they are sourced, we have the luxury of monitoring the acidity level, seeing as they slowly drop as the sugar increases. We get to spend days in the vineyard to make sure that these grapes are specifically ideal for brandy. They have the acidity. Of course, if you have higher acidity, you have the lower alcohol. The acidity translates, and there's a saying that we say in brandy as well, that the acidity gives you varietal character. So the varietal strength comes through much stronger on a Chenin, and the Sydney Pack range specifically uses Chenin Blanc grapes. So that's what the aim is, and the identity of it is to give you that sort of true to type South African pot still brandy. You know, a lot of stone fruit characters And it's fantastic if you look at our 10, 15, and the 25, how that develops and how it ages. You can almost see the maturation also of peach and apricots through that. And the varietal strength is something that really drives that for us.
Years ago, I spent some time in Scotland with one of the whiskey brands, and we had a long chat from a Scottish master distiller. We obviously didn't understand a word he said, but when it was translated afterwards, it was an introduction of how he felt was best to drink whiskey, which was avoid the ice because it's only going to close it down, and drink it with a little bit of room temperature water just to open it up. And I've always found that that's given me the best interpretation of a single malt when I've tried it. Ronaldo, my producer and director, drinks his brandy with Fanta, but he's Portuguese, so he's unfortunate. What is the best way, if I'm drinking some 25-year-old Sydney back, that I should be approaching this to get the very best out of it?
So I would say always start neat. So what we like to do also when I display to consumers for the first time is start with what we call a quiet glass. So put it in a glass, don't start swirling immediately, don't heat up the glass before, have it and as unadulterated as possible. So don't introduce any other flavors to it, don't even dilute it at first, and see how you feel with it. And the fantastic thing about brandy of this age is, of course, the complexity. So as it opens up, so if you're sitting and you're planning on having a few glasses, drink it in different settings and see how you prefer it. And even though I would prefer my brandy neat, if there's a certain brandy that I would like some water with, I would still start with it neat, and then later on add some water to it, just because you get a real appreciation of the depth of flavor that you actually have, which is very difficult to describe in a brandy that's this old. I mean, there's just layers upon layers of fruit that come out, and everyone has their own preference on how to enjoy it.
So first prize neat, second prize is splash of water, but probably not with Fanta.
I wouldn't. I haven't tried it, to be honest.
Actually, the colour has drained from your face. Just so right.
It's getting a little bit hot in here
now. I shall fire Ronaldo with immediate effect. You, of course, are a Ronaldo as opposed to Ronaldo, and Ronaldo's was far superior. Ronaldo, thank you so much. As I said, I've got a bit of history with this. I've always enjoyed it, and it's lovely having Brandy and yourself on the show, so thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Dan.
There we go. It'll keep Winnie Bowman happy. Some Brandy on the show. And again, brandy that's in a premium space. It's not your brandy and Coke style. And there's absolutely a place for that. I know loads of winemakers whom a brandy and Coke is a very, very happy space. But this, 25 years old, the time that's gone into creating it, the craft that's involved in making this means that it really does deserve the kind of attention that, well, it's not with Fanta. Let's leave it at that. So you might have missed out. We've just had a conversation. So Ronaldo, my director, drinks his brandy with Fanta. It's very embarrassing.
That's a new one.
Yeah, I've been trying to fire him, but there are unfortunately labour laws which have prevented
me.
It's
very difficult.
Anyway, let's move.
Don't judge until have you tried it?
I honestly don't think I could in good conscience. But you go wild and you come back and let me know what it was like. What have we got here? I'm always excited.
Roxton Black here today by the Brampton range.
Now this is what's the story with the name of this? It involves is it a cow or a pig, or is there there's a link here somewhere?
Something a little bit more bigger than a pig. So it's the Black Angus bull, so the pedigree bull. So we have Brampton, and then his son basically Roxton. So,
right.
Yeah.
And this was a project. It was a look at where we really want to make something particularly special and deliver something that had there was very much a vision in mind when this wine was conceptualized.
Yes, no, and I think the Brampton range, in essence, as a whole, they wanted something that is very unique and authentic, and something that really speaks to each individual person's identity, really. And I think it does. I mean, starting with Roxton Black, with Brampton, Roxton, with the rest of the range as well, the Cinsault, the Pinot Grigio, everything really. And I think it really speaks to everyone, which is fantastic. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about this particular wine. I've always enjoyed it greatly. For people who haven't had it before, what are they expecting if this arrives in their glass?
So, I mean, if you think about the pedigree bull, right? It's big, it's bold, it's meant to be in your face, but still stay true to each person. And I do think, the grapes come from the Helderberg region, which is a fantastic region for Cab Sav. Some of our best Cab Sav grapes come from there. And so I really do think it packs that punch, but it's still drinkable, it's still enjoyable. And why not buy a wine that is making those punches, but you want to drink glass to glass to glass. Well, I see it that way. I don't know about anyone else.
Medium-sized glasses, of course.
Depends,
With the one we've chatted to a couple of guys already on the show this evening, there is such a big family of wines, and if you're looking from outside, there's always the worry: well, how are they not overlapping? How are they not cannibalizing each other? How are they not eating into each other's markets? And yet, the more we dial down into them, we always see that there's a very specific vision to what everything is and where it fits into a bigger picture.
Exactly, and I think with all of our brands, there's such a focus. With all of our brands, I enjoy each and every one of them myself. I'll go from Cap Classique to, I think, what Jacques had, the Black Angus, to the Pinot Grigio, to Fry's Cove. I love them all, and I think they're all so unique that I don't think we've ever come close to overlapping in any case. I think it's for each and every person out there, and I think that's what's great about DGB as a whole, is we're able to achieve those and to create such a diverse range of wines that it suits every single person.
As you say, you have the benefit of fruit from the Helderberg and Stellenbosch Cabernet Sauvignon, which perhaps, if we go back long enough, was always seen as kind of big and powerful, intense wine. There's a lot more elegance that's come into a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon, and this is another example of wine that's really giving the fruit the chance to tell such a special story.
And I think that's what we try and create here. We don't want to overpower our fruit. The fruit is so incredible as it is. Why change that? And I think that going from the Helderberg to wherever we go, we want the terroir to speak for itself, and we try and stay true to that. And I think that's what Brampton is as well. Stay true to what you are as a person, to an individual, and I think all of our brands actually do that.
Well, I'm going to spend the evening trying some of this while you're drinking your brandy and Fanta, and then we can report back afterwards. I think I might be the happier person, but you never know. Maybe I'll be slightly surprised.
Who knows? Maybe cream soda and brandy.
Oh, God, that's a horrible thought. Magic.
Lovely meeting
Well,
you.
likewise. Thank you so much. That is the Roxton with Brampton. You saw the Black Angus a little earlier. I think we did with Jacques from Boschendal. And again, there's a wine that's big, hefty bottle, but a little more delicacy within. And the Brampton Cabernet Sauvignon as well. It's a wine with a lot of balance and taking still that character of fruit, but giving it a lovely sense of elegance. And I really do enjoy the way that comes together. It is a blur of brands as we join you here from the campus in Bryanston, home to NTT Data, which is also the home this evening of the DGB Premier Showcase. And we've been through a whole pile of terrific brands. But the brand we're going to jump into now is one I am particularly excited about, because this is one I had for the first time, I think, about a month ago. And I have to say I regretted opening it, because I opened it with my wife, and I think I got one glass.
Yeah, you had to share it. You had to share it.
And I've had to hide the other two bottles.
Good
but
choice.
She will find them. A really cool story. The Last Elephants and Franschhoek have got this long history anyway. It's a relatively new edition from the Franschhoek Cellar. Talk us through how this came about and what the story is.
So Dan, I think, as you mentioned, Franschhoek has got a long history with elephants. Previously known as Olifantshoek, so steeped in heritage and history. And the sort of thought process behind this was to create a wine to honor the history of Franschhoek. It's where we're based, it's where our home is. So yeah, it's a tribute to the last elephant that we're seen leaving the valley. And while it is somewhat of a sad story, we are proud to have created a wine that I think really celebrates that. And our sort of slogan is an iron fist and a velvet glove, which I think really lives up to its name.
Do we know when that last elephant was said to have departed?
So we've said the early 19th century, which doesn't feel that long ago, but if you think of sort of the speed that everything is developed at, it was actually not that long ago.
It is a lovely tribute, and it's a tribute from Franschhoek Cellar, which I've spent many hours in over the years. It's a little bit of a change direction. I get that sense. This is more of a premium product. A lot of the Franschhoek Cellar wines I've drunken have been at a slightly more accessible space. So is that a broader shift, or is this just sitting atop what was once there?
Look, I think the essence of Franschhoek Cellar is that it's accessibility, it's easy drinking, it's sort of for all occasions and for everybody, but this is something to kind of hero that really special winemaking heritage of Franschhoek, and just kind of, have something that sits on the premium scale that can be collected. As I'm sure we make this in very small batches, the best that the cellar produces each year. Each bottle is numerically numbered, so something really special, something's to be treasured.
Now, I see an elephant on the label, and immediately I think, well, this is going to be a fairly substantial wine.
Yes.
What is in it, and is it consistent? Is this going to be a wine we see every year? And if so, will we see the same style, the same grapes every year?
Definitely the same sort of grapes, I would say, Bordeaux style blend. I don't think we'll venture away from that. But certainly not a recipe wine. It's, again, as I said, the best that the winery can offer each year. The winemaker will go and select the best barrels. We then blend together, spends 14 months in barrel, another 12 months in bottle. So certainly not something that we are in a rush to make, and something we will only make in a vintage we feel is important and necessary.
All right. So this would be 2022. Was this the very
2022.
first one?
So no, our maiden vintage of this was the 2015. But throughout the years have sort of scaled up the production a little bit. But yeah, brand new vintage release, so no exciting awards to talk about yet, but I'm certain in the next couple of months we'll have something exciting
I think
to talk
yet
about.
is the operative term
Yes,
there. Is this something that people can get hold of? Because a lot of people have never seen that before. Is it purely you have to be good friends with, or is it stuff you can get?
Definitely available through Franschhoek Cellar's online store. We've also got it available coming soon in a beautiful gift pack. Obviously, if you're in Franschhoek, please come and visit us. It's available at the brand home. And again, I think just because of its rarity and its specialness, not something we want to make widely available. Maybe not something you're going to find at your local Checkers, but it's definitely worth seeking out and keeping in your cellar.
All right, let's see if we can sneak a few into the Dan Really Likes Wine store with Norman Goodfellows.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be doing a little bit of tasting, which of course means I'm going to be doing a lot of tasting a little later on. This should be in it. One or two others from Franschhoek Cellars that you feel at the moment I should be looking out for?
I think the 2024 Sauvignon Blanc is showing really beautifully at the moment. Summer is on its way, so a perfect summer sipper. And the cab, I think there's been a little bit of a move back to drinking some nice kind of bold cabs. Again, Franschhoek Cellar, easy drinking, everyday wine. So definitely something to have on your dinner table tomorrow night.
All right, we'll consider them on tonight's list. Thank you. It's a cool story. It is a great wine.
Fantastic.
Again, I just wish I hadn't introduced it to my wife.
Next time. Thanks, Dan.
There we go. It's a really cool story. It's part of Franschhoek's history. If you look at the Old Road Wine Company and all of the stories there, this is another story out of Franschhoek that has been brought in and melded together with a terrific wine. It's not one you will see a lot of. It's not one you will see every single vintage. But if you do find it, you can get hold of it, then one to have a look at, as much for the heritage of Franschhoek as for some really, really good wine. So we've had loads of bubbles, we've had white wines, we've had red wines, and now we get something that's just a little odd, because I know all the DGB brands. I know Boschendal, and I know Backsberg, and I know Bellingham, and I know Franschhoek Cove, and I know Aldrager. Canon Cobb? I didn't realize DGB had bought Canon Cobb. When did that happen? Well, let's explain the story.
Should I give you a quick introduction on the brand, just to kind of get you clued up?
I think it's, as you can see, it's much needed.
How are you doing?
Well, in yourself.
Andre.
Andrew, what is the story? Paul Sal, brilliant. We are friends already.
Good stuff.
Canon Cobb, DGB, how does this work?
So the relationship with DGB goes back about 30 odd years already. So Canon Cobb has been with the DGB team from the start, really. And Canon Cobb is all about relationships. So we're still working with the DGB team, and obviously very fortunate to come to these kind of events.
You sit amongst some terrific brands, but I think they would very proudly be sitting alongside of you because this is one of South Africa's first growths, to use a Tim Hutchinson term, from the last few years, and you're able to deliver wine that I think you've done what a lot of people haven't done. The number of winemakers who they'll start a brand and we're only ever making 2 wines, and 6 years later they've got 81 different wines. Duncan Savage, how are you? You guys are very focused. You've got a limited number. You know what you're good at. You know what you like to make, and you've been really good at keeping that focus.
Yeah, that is, I think, one of the mantras of Canoncorp has always been, don't reinvent the wheel. If it works, stick to it. And throughout the years, it's really been refined by, our three legends in the cellar. And we're very fortunate to actually have seen how, if something works, and you get a great product out of it, and you do it year after year, how you can actually see each vintage reflected in each bottle. And that for us is just very, very special.
One of the big differences between wine in France and wine in South Africa, it's quite rare to have the name of the winemaker prominent in the marketing or in the talk about a particular wine. In South Africa, it drives the majority of big wines. Who is the winemaker who has made it? And I think a big part of that is the relative age. A lot of our brands are still quite new, and a big name winemaker helps to drive them. I get the sense, though, as Arbery moves on to continue with his own adventures and still as a supporting role, but that Canoncorp is very much focused on, well, we are now a big enough brand, we're a successful enough brand. That's what's driving our story.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very fortunate that Arbery is also is leaving us with a young, exciting and dynamic winemaking team. We have some phenomenal talent in the cellar that those guys have come up with him and under his tutelage, and I think they're just going to carry on building the Canoncorp brand, but also making a name for themselves and to show what they've got.
I'm going to ask you a question about the rest of today, given that although there's a strong partnership with DGB, there's a certain gap in terms of how you operate. When you look onto this broader DGB operation, for me, it's so important for South African wine because especially abroad, DGB is doing a really good job of getting South African wine into glasses everywhere. How much does the work being done by all of these brands and by this family help everybody else in the industry?
Oh, absolutely. I think the more we can speak about South Africa out there and the more strong brands we have, obviously that helps. It trickles down and it helps all of us really in the industry. If you look at just in the past, I would say 10 years, companies like DGB and with brands, with the brands that they have in their portfolio, and obviously us being along for the ride, but not only, but some of the other stronger brands and companies out there really driving the high value and brand proposition of brand South Africa, and that is phenomenal. And the feedback that we receive from the international community is amazing. So and I think it reflects in how many sold out flights there are coming to South Africa at the moment.
Wine continues to tell a great story. Look, it's not just DGB. I'm overseas most months, and it doesn't take me too long generally to find a bottle of Cadet somewhere.
Well, that's good to know.
A bottle of Cab Sauv, a bottle of Pinotage, or ideally a bottle of 2015 Paul Sour that's been mispriced.
If you find one, let me know. I found a little gem like that, and I'm not going to tell you where, but it was one of our neighboring countries, which seemed a little bit mispriced, but it was. It was almost like the shop manager tried to hide it for as long as he could until it was written off stock.
Oh dear, it's lovely to have you along this evening. Thanks for being part of the show, and good luck with new and exciting times at Canoncorp.
Thank you very much, Dan. Appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Eric.
Cheers.
There we go. Again, one of South Africa's great brands, and working with DGB in a distribution space. We are just about at the end of the show. There's not much time to go, but I think we can squeeze in one more wine brand before we wrap up, and I get to the serious business of some analysis and tasting, because it's hard to get quite so many brands into just the one show, but we are trying to give you a real snapshot of this portfolio and of the work that is being done across the board with all of these different brands working together. And I think we're really doing so much for South African wine. As we come towards the end, just the one final guest to wrap us up for today. And we finish off on a high, because this is exactly how I wanted to end the show. Come on in, Alicia, because this is... I was actually looking at this a little earlier on, and I was thinking back to the single greatest day of my wife's life, when she walked down the aisle and saw me waiting for her at the other end. Because Backsberg is, of course, where I got married, and that means I'm not sure there's a brand I've drunk more of over the years. So welcome back to the show. Lovely to have you on, and lovely to be celebrating. And I know that when you get to come on board, all of your fellow winemakers, all these different brands showcasing the best of what you do, it's a really proud moment.
It's lovely to be here. Thanks.
We've got here the John Martin. First thing that people who maybe haven't had a little bit of Backsberg for a year at all notice, well, hang on, these brands look a little bit different. There has been quite a significant makeover.
Yeah, can I show it? Or
Please
can you see it?
Please
Watch your camera. Yes, we have a new look on our Backsberg labels, and we've reinvented our logo to look very similar to the old logo we used to have. And we used to have a Klein Babylon Storing blend that people
Which
still
I
ask me,
remember well.
oh, where is the Klein Babylon Storing? So Klein Babylon Storing blend is now, we call him John Martin. John Martin was a farm manager for over 40 years at Backsberg. And so long ago we had a John Martin that was our oak fermented Sauvignon Blanc.
Yes, I remember it.
So since that's sort of gone out of fashion, we'd used that name and we called it this our Bordeaux blend now.
We've had a couple of conversations over the last few years around the rebirth, if you like, of Backsberg. What sense are you getting of where that journey's at, and how you're finding your feet and your vision of where you'd like Backsberg to be?
I think we've definitely tried to modernize modernize the brand. And initially I wasn't quite sure about it, but it's working. And I'm liking it. We're getting a new traction. We're getting younger people interested in the brand. It feels fresh and it feels different, open for change.
It's always an interesting exercise, because you will have a legacy following, and people don't always like change.
No,
are there little bumps in the road you have to navigate?
No, we definitely had bumps. I mean, we have our ranges as we had them, but yes, the different look on the labels was too modern for people, or they didn't recognize it. And it's 3 years now. We're starting to see people starting to recognize it again. But it was initially quite not that easy.
The rueful smile. Well, I think you seem to have got through the worst of it, and the storms
lovely.
have cleared.
We've got a lovely the winery looks new and it's modernized. We've done so much with technology in the last few years. Very modern winery, actually. So that's nice. It's nice. It's at least it's sustainable. The brand is sustainable now.
I have great memories, not just of the wedding, but of sitting having lamb spit fries in the garden on a Sunday.
And we have the most amazing view at Backsberg now. You have to come and look. It's beautiful. Our winery and basin is beautiful.
All right. John Martin is here. What else is new? I know there's a Cabernet Franc that's still fairly early on.
Cabernet Franc, it's here tonight, and we have our our smuggled wine Chardonnay is here for tasting, and we still have the Pampau Shiraz,
which is also very much a classic when it comes to Backsberg. In fact, I think that was one of the wines we drank at our wedding.
I nearly bought it in. I wasn't sure now which one, but the Pampau
I think it has a mixed
Shiraz
feeling, because it was the 4 bottles of that my mother had that had a fall off a table while dancing and break her leg. She's very badly behaved, but she watches all the shows, so I'm going to be in trouble now. So I'm going to try all of those. I'm going to come down for a visit, full of nostalgia, because I do love Backsberg. And congratulations, because I think you're still making some wonderful wine for the brand, but you've also taken it into the next step, which it needed.
I've taken it into the 5th generation, is how we say it. Yes.
Oh dear. All right. Well, thank you for it. I'm going to come and do some tastings a little later. Lovely to have you along. All right. We should be wrapped up, but we're going to sneak in one very, very last one very quickly, or a quick handful of them, because again, as with Canoncop, here's another brand that you probably didn't realize had an association with the guys from DGB. No, it's not just something else that Tim has purchased, but something else with which DGB has a relationship. It is Vergelegen, now being controlled by the large Irishman, who is not here today. We don't have Luke. We do some great wine with a bit of a new look to it as well, and a really cool new look. This is actually the first time I've seen these new images. I'm really impressed. It is clean. It is fresh. It's looking really good. I'm recognizing the mill race in particular and the V. But there's a new look. We've just been talking now about the Backsberg makeover. It is always a challenge because when you've got a brand that people know so well, and especially a brand like Vergelegen, like Backsberg as well, people kind of feel they've got a bit of ownership of them because they've been drinking and supporting for so long. When you move things over, it does come with one or two challenges.
Definitely, Dan. We've looked at what sells and what the public wants. So unfortunately, some of the wines have been taken out of the portfolio. So in our entry-level range, which was the premium range, there was a Shiraz and also a Chardonnay. And now it's substituted with a Wild Winds Sauvignon Blanc, which of course the win was created up on that Scarpenberg vineyard. So that's why we've had to honor the win for helping us with the downy mildew. And then the mill race. I mean, the mill race has always been a classic in South Africa. And it's always the millers where people used to meet when way back when Willem Adrian was there and when the farm started. So we thought, let's honor the fact that the mill race bring people together and it's a wine that we can enjoy together at a braai and celebrate being South African. So you'll see the slight change in brands, but a lot of thought has gone into it, and we're very excited with what we're going to do in the market with it.
It coincides with a very gifted winemaker. Luke took me for a tour not long after he'd said goodbye to Glenelly and moved over to this very big new challenge. And it feels like what had been a great titan of South African wine, but one that was in need of a little TLC, is now very much getting that and is entering a really exciting and much needed new chapter.
Very exciting times. With the recent Tim Atkin report, we got 95 points of the V. So that's one of Luke's first V's that he's finished or made for us. So yes, quality is on the bottle, and it's always good for an old lady like that to have a slightly new hand to guide it through where the potential could be. So we're very, very excited to have Luke on board.
Tell me a little bit quickly about this relationship with DGB.
So DGB has got two associate brands, us and Canoncop, and they do our selling in our back office, but we've also got quite a big team on the ground that only work with Vergelegen. So it's almost a hybrid system if you compare it to what some of the other brands would have. So we don't only go with the distributor, we also have a sales force of our own. We believe that a brand like Vergelegen needs a bit of focus, and it needs focus with individual people in the market where their strengths lie.
I am guessing that although we've got some really cool new stuff here, you're certainly not done yet.
No, there might be one or two little secrets, but nothing that I can reveal at this stage. But yes,
story of tonight's show.
We are excited with things that are lying ahead and where we are heading. Yes.
All right, like it really does look good. I shall report back on social media on the wine itself by the end of this evening. But I got a pretty good feel of it's going to be a positive one. Really exciting times. So good luck with it. Love the new look. I know the wine will match with that. And have fun with this brand new chapter.
Thanks for coming out and tasting the wines tonight, Dan. We look forward to showing you some more of our stuff.
Great pleasure.
Cheers.
And give Luke fond regards.
I will do.
All right, there we go. So Vergelegen wraps us up with Dan Really Likes Wine for this evening. A special edition from the Premier Showcase, the Portfolio Showcase here at DGB, running through all manner of brands. We've had bubbles, whites, reds, more importantly, winemakers with terrific stories, wine brands with terrific stories, and collectively, just another reminder of the quality of South African wine, the great narratives behind our wines, and why there is so much potential to take South African wine to even more of the world and show just what we can do and how well we can do it. That does it for the show this evening. We'll be back again with a magazine show on Thursday. Look out for Kebo Noir, Kenzie Nobanda's brand with Tebogo Motsepe, and Farmer Angus from Spear, who's making wine in between treading the path of regenerative farming. That does it for this evening. Happy drinking. I'm off to do some research. See you later. Goodbye.